fleeces the police. At an NSAS commemorative protest at the Lekki tollgate, a year after one of the darkest days in Nigerian history, a light was shone on just how prevalent police brutality still is. This protester was the first we saw to be apprehended by the police at the tollgate. After approaching security forces with an NSAS poster, he was ushered into the back of this van. Inside, he says his phone was taken by police, who also beat him. That too was the account given by Abisola Alawode, a Lagos-based journalist who had also been apprehended while he says he was on duty.
Punches! That's my lip is literally, I just cleaned my mouth. I was from within this vehicle here. As I was dragged here, I kept on identifying myself. My ID card got missing in transit as they were dragging me. I have other. They took my phones and my ID card, my driver's license, everything that identifies me as a journalist has been taken. One part of my eye is closed and I can't see very well because of this. I was hit here. I was punched. I was hit here.
Traditionally, press and press property during protests are off limits. But after flying a drone to get a bird's eye view of the car procession protest, the Arise News team was approached.
What are you doing? Madam, drop. Yes, you are videoing us.
And what's the problem with me videoing if you're not doing anything unlawful?
You should bring that.
We are live. We are actually live. We can't just bring it. I don't think that's happened.
Officer.
Please, you are holding guns and you are coming.
No.
Stand back from me, please.
Bring it down.
Let them bring it down.
You're pushing against me. You can step back. Step back from me. Move it. I'll drop my hand when you step back.
The drone is against me.
It's not against, it's a camera that is in the air. That is it. No, you cannot see that. No, you can't see that equipment. No.
Keep it. Let go of 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 it.
What did I do? I also have my ID card. What did I do?
In the aftermath of the altercation, police officers warned members of the Arise News crew to leave the tollgate because we had been identified as targets. We stayed, and with a direct threat from the police, we reported it to the police. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Odumosu, was apologetic. Commissioner, my final question is flying a drone against your rules of engagement. We did fly a drone and we were directly harassed by members of your force because we flew a drone.
Any harassment given to you, my apologies. Any harassment.
So we were in fact allowed to fly a drone?
So any harassment given to you is an apology. So it is just a misbehavior of one or two leaders among us. And we take action. Because if we are to do that with the leaders, or at least you have the number of policemen that we have here. If it's our normal behavior, almost all of them will have brutalized everybody. But in the family, somebody can do that. However, that has done that, we identify now necessary action to be taken. Any tool that the journalists need to use in order to cover and do his professional calling now is allowed. So we have done anything in that area, and that is out of ignorance, out of inexperience, so out of his own duty and exuberance now, so out of his own professional calling now misbehaves, we take action. So on our behalf, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But is an apology due to Adedotun Clement for the heavy-handedness used against him? He says he's an Uber driver who was forced to leave his car when police used tear gas to disperse the crowd in the aftermath of the procession of cars. On his return to the vehicle, he was put under arrest and forcibly taken to the back door of this police van. He resisted the arrest. As a result, he was slapped, sprayed directly in his eyes, and manhandled by police and Lagos State security officials. Adedotun was able to evade his arrest while we were on the ground. It's unclear if he escaped or was released, but one thing we do know is police are there to protect. But it's possible that after at least 22 officers were killed and more than 100 more injured during the NSAS protests in 2020, some may feel unprotected. And while officers are entitled to respect and a certain amount of power while enforcing the law, as the Lagos State Commissioner of Police put it, brutality is not one of them. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Lagos.
ADENIYI Kunu, an active participant in the NSAS struggle, is here with us to gauge the level of compensation, if any, for this category of abused Nigerians. Good morning and welcome to the morning show, Mr. Kunu.
I want to say good morning and thank you for having me this morning. It's a privilege and pleasure to be here again.
As always.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Well, as you saw there, my co-host Adefemi and the Arise film crew were assaulted by the Nigerian police on the very day that marks the one-year anniversary of the NSAS. The same issue our youth were protesting against. So it is safe to say nothing has changed. Now, when you look at the initial 5-point demand by the protesters, 1, the release of arrested protesters, 2, justice and compensation for families of victims, 3, independent body to oversee persecution of officers within 10 days, they say, 4, psychological evaluation of disbanded officers before redeployment, 5, increase of police salaries. Well, it appears some action have been taken from point 1 to 4, but point 5, which I believe is one of the more important demands. As it stands now, there's not been a clear action plan taken to achieve that. Now, what do you say to that?
In the first place, the pictures you showed us before you brought me in, those offenses evidently have been committed by President Muhammadu Buhari. And I expect President Buhari to apologize because that's President Muhammadu Buhari in action. Without mincing words, the police are a very strong appendage of the presidency because they're in the executive. And such crimes wouldn't get committed if the person who actually gets them into position doesn't give them the go-ahead. So those sins can be described as crimes committed against the citizens of this country by President Muhammadu Buhari. I'm saying it emphatically so that those who don't understand should know. The police are supposed to be the extension of the protection expected of the president, but those we have not seen. Now, you talked about the 5-on-5 demand.
Right.
The 5th one talks about the welfare of police. As I sit here, I have nothing less than 5 phone numbers and contacts of police officers that buy their uniforms and boots, the locations, the amounts for the past 15 to 18 years. Let's respect one another and let nobody try to question that, because we can do a call right here in your studio if anybody needs proof, and definitely they'll tell us what it is. The only thing we won't reveal are their names. You don't give people the job of securing the lives and property of the citizenry, and you treat them like animals. So when you have police officers who are supposed to take charge of people's lives and property, but the particular motivation they need, the basics of it, they don't get. Show me a police officer that has any proper insurance policy, and I'll tell you they'll die to protect the citizens. So there are basics you expect the government to understand. Oftentimes we are quick to quote or refer to the systems of things done abroad, but the particular sacrifices those governments make to ensure that their citizens have proper premium on their lives, we don't have it here. And it is quite shameful. Now, if we look at what we saw, you'd find out that the demography of youth among those who came out to actually do the commemoration are in their numbers, their youth. Let's say this, please, very clearly. According to the new youth policy of 2019, the demography is between the age of 15 and 25. According to the African Charter on Youth Policy, the age is between 15 and 35. The crop of those we saw are youth with plenty of energies to dissipate. It therefore means that the lack of knowledge and intelligence by this government and by the previous government, because Jonathanians and Buharidins wouldn't let us talk, especially when we try to help them understand that this country should not be dismembered. If you look at it, these are young people that have a lot of energies, plenty of resource, And you'd expect those who are the foot soldiers of the president to latch onto the resource of these young persons, their energies, the positivity of what they want for the country. But it is always something about wanting to take them out of their position of power. And that's balderdash. You talked about some other things listed on the 5-on-5. I do not think any reform was taking place. Don't forget, SARS was disbanded. SWAT was initiated. Where is SWAT? Let them show me, for instance, the trainings they've given to SWAT. I just need blueprint, executive summary of the trainings they've given to the people, psychological evaluation. I can, if you want me to do it, before the end of this new week today, I can give you pictures and videos of policemen who sit at places where they take alcoholic beverages every morning, and they take it. I'm not joking. It's a very serious matter. You cannot be intoxicated while you're going to work and expect to treat the people you're supposed to protect with any sense of self-worth and dignity. These are basics that we are not looking at. So when we talk about the police, they say the police are our friends. But what I see on the screen there shows that the police are your enemies. Because you wouldn't in the first place. How could you want to blind somebody? You put in such tear gas directly in somebody's eyes. It is something that you can never gain the trust and respect of the citizens. Look at what we have on your screen. Very terrible experience of people that should protect you. Look at blood on the face of people. That is the list of civility from police officers that have been taught to mediate in civilian issues and treat civilians like human beings. So you are treating fellow citizens who pay your salaries. That man has a job. He pays taxes. The taxes actually are used to pay the salaries of the same police. So the person you are feeding is oppressing you. So things like this are what we will continue to have unless government listens, especially the protests. Let me say this. In every civilization and despotic experiences in all governments of the world, the people have always won. So I'm saying here for the records, from Benito Mussolini to many other leaders, to Adolf Hitler, to forget about the fact that they say we're in a democracy. Everything you see here are insignia of despotism, of dictatorship. I'm not saying it is evident before our eyes. So you cannot, but then if you also look at it, the height of it is that the occupant of the fourth estate of the realms that guarantee, forget about the judiciary, they say the judiciary is the hope of the common man. I say, no, not like a Malami. No, who hurts? Not like the CGN. I'm saying this because the records are there. The media is now, in my candid assessment, the hope of the common man. But the same media got assaulted. Tell me the kind of respect that you'd expect to give the government that could treat those disseminating information, making people understand how citizens should act. The agents of civilization and those that direct the course of information are being harassed that way. And that is a reflection again of the kind of police you have. Very unintelligent, disrespectful, and they should be taken to somewhere and given proper training for the next 2 years. We don't even want this kind of police on the street. Okay, let me give you another example. Months ago in the year 2021, the federal government released over 3 billion to set up community policing. Who employs community police? The federal government. So the federal government that has a man in Maiduguri will employ a community police officer and transfer him to Bayelsa State, so that the man who has never seen such high body of water in 13 local governments in Bayelsa will be recruited to the creeks of Brass or Nembe in rivers. These are the kind of illogical recruitment that cannot help police efficiency. So tell me what blueprint that was released before they even released money of over 3 billion to recruit. So it is a very big conversation. I was part of it.
I know that you can go on and on.
It is painful. That's
it is. I mean, it's painful for all of us. Yes. I mean, each time we can't be tired of watching this video. And each time I look at, you know, the heroic, shall I say, you know, performance of Adefemi, you know, I mean, she's basically like a woman in 3, you know, because she did very well, and she, you know, it's remarkable, it's commendable. But of course, let us also put these things in context, particularly along the line of compensation that we are discussing about.
Okay, all right.
The Federal Executive Council did say, and it looks to me like they were pushing the responsibility to the states and to say, go and deal with the compensation. Make sure that you do the needful. We know that Lagos State is committed in some ways to about 214 billion, you know, for compensation. Edo State has mentioned about 190 million. A few other states are trying. Not many have complied.
Yes.
is this about compensation, and what would be adequate? What compensation would be adequate for that gentleman that was brutalized, or for Femi, or for the cameraman, you know, or for Arise as an organization? What would be adequate in your opinion?
Sincerely, I want to recommend very strongly that this organization, despite the apologies of Egbon Akim Odumusu, I've had the privilege of speaking with him a couple of times, and I think his level of civility is above average. I have great respect for him as the one who heads the police in Lagos. But don't forget that there are times you set precedent for something not to recur. I would appreciate if Arise can take the federal government and the Nigeria police to court, the president to court, and seek proper compensation for the harassment, because it's according to law. There are certain things you do. For instance, before they did the protest, they talked about seeking police permits. That was thrown in the dustbin since 2007 in a landmark case that Femi Falana has also expatiated. So a situation where the federal government continues to act or treat the citizens as if the citizens are their... President Muhammadu Buhari is #1 servant of Nigerians. He's in Aso Rock probably eating breakfast now on the tax I paid. So he must learn to stay humble and do the bidding of the Kunus of this world, the Arise TVs of this world, because we pay taxes to take care of the office he occupies. So that said, the compensation talked about should not happen unless the president has apologized. Don't forget that part of why these youths stayed resilient was that the president must address them. And you know, Nigerian youths don't need much. They just want a sense of self-worth and belonging. Let me tell you, I am very privileged to work with a lot of people that are youths. I've learned a lot. They just want you to love them, appreciate them, recognize the effort they make. And that is one thing we don't quite see. This year, or maybe late last year, the video is available where the president said, there is no more vacancy. Even if there are no vacancies, you don't speak like that, especially the office you occupy. The president didn't make such statements in giving hope to young people. And let me say this, please. In terms of the compensation, I think what should precede compensation is to first of all apologize, then secondly, prosecute the people that have actually caused the problem that continues to cause this agitation. Let's say this. The victims of EndSARS, 136 persons, I'm talking Lagos now, out of 136 persons, 14 were directly linked to the Lekki protest. That means 122 plus of those persons have been brutalized, manhandled, disrespected, humiliated over the past. Some people's cases that they've even got verdicts was beyond 10 years. 10 years. Some of them under this administration. So Jonathan has his own iniquity. President Muhammadu Buhari has his own iniquity, and this iniquitous leadership must try as much as possible and stay humble. I keep saying this. President Muhammadu Buhari is Nigeria's #1 servant. His office means you have to always do the bidding of the people, especially for the good of the nation. But people don't quite understand that. They are getting numbed into psychological delirium, not to understand who holds the power. The people have the power. I want one Nigeria. I don't want people to unseat the president by ligaments. But I need the president to do justice and equity, because that is his primary responsibility, so that we can have security of lives and property. So the compensation for Lagos, 420 million naira. Edo State, some monies as well, in excess of 100 million. Those are very good moves. But what about the real issues? Because don't forget, until we make the police realize they can't treat people like this. Let me say this. When England played, I think that was the semi-final of the Euro Championship, and some fans, some rebels got into Wembley, I saw how the police, with their batons, were very careful in even harming the citizens. There was not a gunshot. And in the course of doing that, when the citizens raged at them, the police retreated. Not because they were not, capable of outwitting them, but they understood the consequences of causing grievous harm or death to their citizens. And they actually retreated, they called for backup, and the people were rounded up, they used cameras, and they arrested those people. That is how civilized police should treat the citizens of this country. And let me say this one more time. It's only in the ascension until the government, maybe Buhari administration, maybe the one who takes over, until they understand the power in the hands of the people and respect the people, they will continue to lose, because the people would always win. And that's a fact of the matter here.
You know, on the topic of justice and accountability, especially here in Lagos, this NSAS panel was created for that very purpose. They finished their panel the day before the anniversary. I think it was on the 18th of October, some days before then. And they have now turned over their findings and their report to the Lagos State government. Lagos State governor did say that they have accepted it, and once they do go through it, they will release those findings to the public. How much faith do you have that, first of all, this entire year-long panel for restitution, which has paid out millions upon millions of naira to victims of SARS-related abuses, how much faith do you have in that process, especially since with all of that money paid, none of them have been paid to people who were affected or lost their lives on or around the 20th of October? So do you think that there's still a huge separation between understanding and acknowledging the wrong that SARS has done, but also separating that from the 2020 NSAS movement? It does feel as though there's a bit of a separation between accountability on one end and compensation on the other.
Well, I think the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. As far as although I won't say I'm totally satisfied with the processes, but I want to cut Lagos State government a slack, being the center of excellence, and the fact that it took the initiative ahead of others to actually have the panel run for the period it has done. But I also believe that there are lots of fences that need mending. And despite the fact that we have a lot of members of the bar and bench who are on the side of the proceedings of making things happen, I think Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu should take the lead. Don't forget, he is the one heading the state ship here in the center of excellence. So he shouldn't take the backseat. In fact, he should not learn from President Muhammadu Buhari, who has done poorly in terms of addressing youth restiveness and issues that affect the polity. The president, I hear, according to some of his spokespersons who have also made a mess of the image of the president. Excuse me, please. The president doesn't have certain levels of competence. That's why he has media advisors, the likes of Garba Shehu and the likes of Femi Adesina. But the point is, they have actually dropped southwards the ratings of the president in terms of public relationship because of their poorly done jobs. And I need to say this very clearly, that Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the executive governor of Lagos, should not look in that direction. Whatever it is, if he has to hold every monthly some briefings regarding that, he has to save the image of Lagos, because Jerusalem is where you begin. Your Jerusalem is where you begin. Lagos is the hotbed of these issues, of this agitation, because of the high level of political consciousness. It therefore means that the task upon his shoulders are quite heavy, and he must take the lead. So I think in terms of accountability, we would actually cut them the slack and hold on a little bit to see what happens in the next 2, 3, 4 months. But at the same time, if we see that they are delaying the release of all these things to the public, by the privilege and mercies of God, we'll all come back to tell them that we're waiting for you to do that. Because if these things are not addressed, let me tell you what many people don't understand. The kinds of children that we have now, this generation QQXXPPWW, if you can look for it, go and find it anywhere. They are a generation that, if you don't treat them with a lot of wisdom, they can burn down certain things and burn themselves with it. They don't care if everybody dies. It therefore means that you must engage them differently. There are new ways you have to infuse, new strategies, new angles, so that you can help deal with them. There are generations that were not taught to keep quiet at times when people are speaking. There are generations who perhaps don't have their parents with them, whose mothers work, whose fathers work. That simply means the kind of evolutionary growth we had is a different experience. And that is why those who are younger and working with the president must begin to pinch him into the reality of the kind of people that is leading. And let me say this, they are not afraid of guns. They are not afraid of dying. Some of us prefer to stay alive and do some other things. Some of them don't even care. And the more you kill your youth, you are creating the chasms that would have helped you build bridges that will salvage a nation. So I think first for Lagos, it's a move in the proper direction, but we want them to expedite action so that we can have the details of the report in good time. Some of us would love to read the details so that we can actually speak to certain issues and help chart courses. Then at the same time, I think also that moving forward, if it is possible for us to have some kind of concerted effort where the pool of concerns we have if they are delaying, we're right. As a matter of fact, I've told people in certain platforms, it is now time for us to rewrite the constitution of this country and look for judicial and legal processes to present it. Because we, the people, that is on the first 2-3 pages of the Nigerian constitution, is the biggest of lies. My parents, your parents, our representatives were not part of this particular constitution aware. So there are lots of issues that we are dealing with here that are not proper. I want a singular Nigeria. I want a country that works. I don't want this country to divide. But everything that would make it stay sane and one is what I'll continue to trouble this government. I'll make them lose sleep until they make it happen. Because I do not want a situation where my children will say, what's that country you say you're from, Dad? Maybe they're talking from up and they say Nigeria and they start looking for it with Google Map. No. I want them to be able to come to this country, live here, go out when they have to travel and have their peace. And this country, I must say, can work. Nigeria can work. As of today, the population is 211 million. Forget the 206 million. People don't bomb, people don't add. So make una know. 211 million plus. So maybe by the end of this week, we'll be 200.
Next year census.
Oh, yes. And another thing, I'm very happy you said this. The National Population Commission is expected to take the lead alongside the National Bureau of Statistics in terms of collecting and giving data that will be processed to actually lead. Since 2006, we should have had another census 2016. Yeah. This is 2021, no census. So you'd have to ask me, what is the raw data that the government is working on in the provision of infrastructure, provision of the needs or provision of solutions to the problems or the needs of the people? If a country with its national agency doesn't have the facts and figures of its population, how does it solve a problem? So there are fundamental issues that we must address here. Because the police, back and forth, once the uniforms are off their back, they are back to the homes where they belong. So that they're essentially an extension of this society that we find ourselves. And if the grown norm of the society, ditto very many other agencies and laws and acts are not in place, then it's a challenge. This country can work for us. But President Muhammad Buhari, you must apologize because you were the one that brutalized Nigerian youths that are asking that you make this country. So President Buhari, this is to you. Apologize, sir, to the people that you are brutalized because the police are from your office. That's what I have to say here.
Well, on that note, Mr. ADENIYI Kunnu, we'll have to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue on the conversation. So stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show. Still with us in the studio is ADENIYI Kunnu, an active participant in the NSAS struggle, who's been, gauging the level of compensation. I'm talking all about NSAS. Now, still on compensation, we talked about the Edo State government. On Friday, they announced that they will compensate victims of police brutality with 190 million naira. And the state governor, Godwin Obaseki, said that the state will not wait for the federal government before paying the victims. He even gave 1 million naira each to 2 victims of police brutality. Now, would you advise state governors to adopt this measure?
In the first place, he who feels it knows it, and we understand that the federal government police, controlled by the federal government, paid by the federal government, is usually, the police deployed to respective states. And don't forget, if there's any trouble, before Abuja even responds, lots of things would have happened. Look at Lagos, for instance, are in excess of 200 to 400 billion damages by those that hijacked the process. And I must tell you that I still do not believe that the entirety of those hijackers were just people who do not know those from the exalted offices in this land. The one for Ikeja is a case in point. How did you ship characters, Homo erectus, don't let me call them Homo sapiens, to Ikeja to go and start wielding machetes and dangerous weapons against people that were peaceful protesting? There was not a single time they destroyed anything at Alao Ikeja. I was 100% part of it. I was with them. I observed so that I can give an insider perspective. So where did they bring them from? On the bus. So let us not be unintelligent in understanding that there's a way the state itself could push people in certain directions to actually break protests because the resolve continues strong. I'm saying this for the records, and I need to be heard. So when we're talking about states taking initiative and paying, I think the states know that perhaps they will suffer more with regards to any destruction that happens in their state, and that's the reason they have to take that particular position and move ahead to deal with issues. But you need to also understand that this is also where that conversation, that call, that push for state policing comes in, owned and managed by the police. And I need people to stop thinking, the police will be used against the political opponents. Drop that. The police has a history of being used one way or the other. And that is why when there was an election that was to return Kayode Fayemi to power, they were able to deploy over about 30,000 or thereabouts to oversee election in Ekiti. And they deployed only 2,000 to Zamfara at the height of the killing. So tell me whose interest is actually protected there. So let's understand what is going on here. Don't also forget, months ago, at the height of the problem in Niger State, they said they have deployed 3,000 special forces to Zamfara. But you can agree with me, the November elections in Anambra, they deployed in excess of 25,000. That is where priority is. Lives and property takes the second. Ballot papers take the first for whoever they are supported. So these kinds of things are the imbalances that affect. So for the state governors to have said, we will compensate. It is proper for them to do that because they feel we can't take it. Then at the same time, let's get this narrative straight. The federal government must understand that the Nigeria Police Force is a federal government property. And for the National Executive Council to have come to say the state will start compensating, it is actually shelving your responsibility. And it hurts me that a professor of law, Oga Yemi Osinbajo, was the one that actually led the entire conversation. In fact, the story happens on the 15th of October. That was when he said it. So I could be quoted and the source can be verified. I'm saying here very clearly that the federal government must be the one paying for the crimes committed by the federal government police. A situation where you are saying that the crimes your men and officers committed in the state should not be paid, then nobody should also tell me again that they have security votes. Security vote is not to pay compensation. It is to help provide the needed tools of work for the police. So let government understand. And this is part of why I feel the president is just observing instead of him to take the lead. The issue of the NSAS is a national concern. For 1 year, the president feels he cannot talk to the people that voted him to power. That is utter disrespect. And I'm saying here that the president is responsible for all the brutality in this country, and I stand not to be corrected. That is what I want to say here. Let us build a nation that we can call our own. After God has said, your time don't reach, come up, come meet me. This country must work for all of us, and that's where I stand.
All right, Adeniyi, let me throw in two quick takes here, because we're almost running out of time. One, compensation definitely will be paid.
Yes, of course.
In your opinion, how should the police officers the families of police officers who lost their lives, how should they be dealt with or accommodated in this compensation? I know that Lagos used to, I'm sure maybe Governor Sanwo-Olu is continuing along with that, but there used to be a thing in Lagos whereby any officer that loses his life in the line of duty, the family gets about 10 million.
Yes.
If it is bodily damage, wounded, it's about 5 million. Now, about 22 police officers, died during NSAS. Police stations were burnt. I don't even want to mention
about 20 in Lagos on record. 20
exactly.
In
Lagos. I don't even want to mention the gory detail of what happened in Ibadan. In Ibadan. Police officers have kids who are part of NSAS, who will be part of the memorial, going forward.
Yes,
and if we continue to treat the generality of the police officers as enemies, we are creating a scar that may be very difficult to deal with. And I think part of what we should do is that their own compensation should also be built into this. Secondly, is the fact that I saw an encouraging aspect before everything went awry on Wednesday.
Yes,
because the agreement was that for 2 hours, between 10 and 12, have a vehicular procession. Move in a certain area. Yes. And it was agreed with the Commissioner of Police. Because my concern is the future of NSAS and what NSAS represents, a stand up against police brutality. If it's not well managed, my fear is that we'll continue to experience the sort of a thing that we saw at Lekki this year, was last year, but of course it was not any better this year. What will you advise in terms of how this should be coordinated anytime that the youths or anybody in Nigeria, feel the need to say we want to make a peaceful demonstration or a protest?
In the first place, the rule book has made it clear. You don't need a permit to protest. you only need to provide protection for those that are protesting. Can the authorities, first of all, respect the law that guide everybody? The law is supreme. So a situation where a court even has to ensure that that is ingrained, but you're not giving conditions, you can't protest, you can't process, go to an event center, all of those things will continue to cause ruckus, which we don't need. I have to say that I feel very terrible and sorry for those who served with dignity, but they got killed.
Yeah.
It's a very sad experience. I had said something before, that I have some connections or contacts of police officers who buy their uniforms and boots. Those are people that are like me, but they only put on uniforms and have to do their jobs. Do not also forget that right here I had said that immediately the police takes off the uniform, they live with us, they are part of us. It means that certain elements of humanity should also be directed in their corner. And let me say this, there are also records of people, if you're talking about those who got killed and you need compensation, what about those who got retired and have not had their gratuities paid? Everything has a connection. What about those army officers as well who got killed in the battlefront and have not been compensated? Everything is connected because one motivation leads to another motivation, and there's an accumulation of motivation. For the Lagos State government, I'm very happy that that is what they do, but I have to tell you that they must stop recruiting police officers because they don't have jobs. Let me tell you, show me 2 Nigerian graduates that are willing to join the Nigerian police to fight crimes and criminality. And I'll tell you, they must be living in Albania or Luxembourg, maybe not in this part of the world. We must make the police even attractive. Then at the same time, what are the recruitment processes? You want to employ somebody. I saw, I think, the penultimate recruitment, the one for Delta State. I saw young people that do not even know their right from left. They just want to have a job. You don't employ people into the police to protect people from crimes or from criminals because they don't have a job. The police or entry into the police force should be based on the fact that people are willing to help their country fight crimes and criminality. So those are the things that they must do forthwith so that gradually, let me tell you, if we want to revamp this police, it will take 15 years. Some people must retire. Some people must be reposted. Some people must be retrained. Then the new intakes must be new breeds. And do you know the interesting part? The same category of people that are to join the police force to help are the ones you are shooting and killing, are the ones you are brutalizing. Tell me what the attraction is for that. So I think that we have to address these things in all ways. Then the motivation for them, apart from creating a sane environment to work, is the fact that you have to pay those who work. Stop owing those who got killed. Do you know what? If I were to punch some buttons now, we can bring up about 5 people whose spouses have died. Let me say this. I even have a woman in my church. The husband had died 7-8 years. It is this year they are just calling out to Abuja to come and process papers. 7-8 years. The man left her with 5 children. It is not far in my church where I go. So I'm saying that we have to respect the lives of those that have been killed, especially in active service, and try as much as possible to make this. Nigeria is a country I love so much. Whatever I have become in this country is here. Public school, everything. So why will I want this country to burn? Anything I say here today is because of passion and love for country. And this country must be made to work. And don't forget, ultimately, we need to have a country where the police and the citizenry can see one another as partners in the progress of this nation and not as the enemies. It's very key for us.
Absolutely. ADENIYI KUNNU, thank you very much for your time here. Thank you for everything you said.
Thank you for having me use the platform. I'm most grateful. Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you. Have a great day.